All right, all right, all right. You're listening to the We're Talking Football podcast. I'm Weston. With me, as always, the right-hand man, Lou.
Uh,
I didn't realize the notorious Big bobblehead was joining us this evening.
it's a little good
Lou,
luck charm for me when I work, man. Dude,
uh,
dream big, sky's the limit type shit.
Lou, our first live stream is happening right now. By the way, we are live streaming this. What better time than coming off of week 1 of the 2023 NFL season? I got to be honest with you though, Lou, and I want your input real quick on this, but I found week 1, outside of just like clamoring for meaningful football and what joy it brings to my life. Week 1 felt exciting, felt upside down, in certain things, starting with that Thursday night game and Detroit going in and upsetting the defending champs and spoiling their ring ceremony game, if you will. But
Oh, so you thought week 1 was exciting?
I
You
thought it
thought
was,
week,
well,
yeah, because you fucking won. Your
yeah,
team won, Weston. I thought week 1 was fucking awful
yeah, I
from a
get it.
from a
I would have
fantasy
felt the same.
standpoint, from a fan standpoint. So I don't want to hear that shit.
I did pretty well in fantasy too.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
in the
yeah.
leagues that
Let's.
matter to me, I did well. So there is that. But let's just end on it was exciting because football is finally back in the real form for the next 18 weeks of our lives, and then obviously the playoffs. Just a reminder that this is live streamed. If you're going to comment, we need you to be logged into the YouTube page. We're Talking Football Podcast. You'll see it come across your Twitter feed. You might even see it come across your Instagram feed if you join via those and you want to leave a comment, and you want me to throw it up on the screen, whatever it might be. I'm not going to be able to see it. It's got to be through YouTube while you're there. Might as well hit the like, hit the subscribe, all that fun stuff. Get signed up for the notifications. This is going to be the norm go forward. A live broadcast versus a pre-recorded video that we upload. So new wrinkle here for the We're Talking Football podcast in 2023. Lou, with that being said, I'm just going to remind everybody format for in-season content. We're going to always try to address a hot topic or two based on last week's slate, whether it's injury related, breaking news related, etc. We'll always go through our hometown takes. I'll talk a little bit about the 49ers game. Lou will obviously talk a little bit about the Chargers game. Then from there, we always have this concept of like what teams should be hitting the panic button or maybe not, who are jubilated, right? Versus in panic mode. So who's freaking out positively or negatively? We're always going to recap offensive and defensive players of the week. We'll take a quick look at upcoming matchups that might excite us for the subsequent week. And then ultimately, always, we're going to sprint through the schedule. We're going to do our weekly pick'ems. It is important to note that Lou did whoop on me again last year. So he is 2-0 in the seasons that we've been doing the We're Talking Football podcast. Not this week, but in coming weeks when there's a little bit more meat on the bone, we'll start giving you some fantasy advice and insight for your teams. That being said, Lou, real quick, we'll give an opportunity for some people to join. Stay through for the intro, and then we'll jump right back in. All right. We are back, Lou. So I'm gonna start us off. I'm gonna talk a little bit about some hot topics. I'm gonna guide you through the subject matter here. I have like 3 things I just want to quickly touch upon. 2 of them are New York Jet related, and I bet you can guess why. But God, I am so glad I am not a New York Jet fan after Monday night's game. But more pressingly, do you feel like Aaron Rodgers has played his final 4 snaps of professional football this past Monday night?
No, I frankly don't. You can't go out like that. Say what you say about Aaron Rodgers. He is the competitor. He's not going to want to go out like that. I fully believe that he comes back to the Jets next year, flounders, and then after that, probably ends up with the Minnesota Vikings to complete his conquest of being Brett Favre's shadow. So I firmly believe he has 2 more years left in him, one with the Jets, one with the Vikings.
Yeah, I disagree. I think
You
Aaron
think he's
Rodgers.
done?
I think he's done. I think
Oh, can we put a bet on this? Because I'll put money on he's not done.
$50.
Yeah,
Okay, $50.
virtual
Sure,
handshake.
virtual handshake. $50. I just think I agree with you. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is the ultimate competitor, and he's an egomaniac. Like I totally agree with that sentiment. I just think for a man who's 40, going to be 40 years old, right, and who's about to have serious surgery on an Achilles tendon, the body's just not going to recover the same way. And I do also think that there's an opportunity for him to go out essentially on the highest of highs, because there is that what if scenario. And here's why it's the highest of highs. When has the hype around Aaron Rodgers ever been greater in terms of what he's going to do to revitalize a program in New York media, like what it just did to catapult the chances of the New York Jets this year, being on Hard Knocks, all of this stuff, to next year? There's going to be a lot of conservatism around him coming back, right? You mentioned flounder, right? Like he'll flounder next year. Is that how he wants to go out? Or do you kind of want to go out on this mountaintop of the what if and the glorification of him even making the decision to come
No,
here?
yo,
And I just don't think his body's gonna. What do I always talk about, dude?
I
Your
know.
body fails you, man.
Yeah, I think you're 100% crazy. There's not a chance in hell that Aaron Rodgers wants his last play, in his professional career to be a sack and his Achilles popping. You're out of your fucking mind. You're crazy. He's
Telling you right
definitely
now,
coming back.
I'd hang it up just on the mystique of me being able to walk around like we would have won it. We would have
Dude.
won it.
Yeah,
We were going to be the best team, because let me tell you, man, that defense was outstanding
yeah.
on Monday night.
Exactly. So why wouldn't you want to come back to a defense that's outstanding?
I don't know. Don't know if that exists
See,
next year. This is a year-to-year league, man.
That's a quick, easy 50 for me.
We'll see, but you're gonna have to wait a while for it. You know what I mean?
So if he has to take one more snap with the Jets, just one more snap.
Yeah, he's got to come back with the intention to be the starting quarterback of the New York Jets next year. It has to be at least one snap on week one.
Has to be week one. Okay, he can't just be like, okay. Yeah, no, I'm still. That's easy 50.
All right, easy 50.
They'll wrap him. They'll wrap up in bubble wrap next off season, and then.
Okay, so let's stay
I feel
with.
bad. I'm taking money from a guy with 2 kids.
That's all right, man, bro. Fuck those kids. They don't need to eat. They eat plenty. All right, let's stay on the New York Jet theme, right? I'm gonna go out and say, while it's obviously being speculated that the Jets are clearly in the market for a quarterback, right? That they're not gonna. If anything, it's like, I mean, obviously based on the quarterbacks that are available, like it's backup material at this point. I'm just saying they're not going to be as aggressive as being as it's being speculated. I think they are not happy about, but are willing to say, you know what, we put all our eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket for 2023. Let's just ride this thing out with Zach Wilson for the remainder of the year. Do you agree with that? I'm going to tell you why I believe that in a second, but do you agree with that sentiment? Or do you think they're going to go find somebody that could, in their eyes, replace Zach Wilson as the starter go forward?
I don't think they're going to try to replace Zach Wilson as the starter, but I think they're going to bring in someone that's going to be competitive to push Zach Wilson as opposed to just handing him. I'm talking about like a Jacoby Brissett. I don't think they're really going to bring in like a Matt Ryan. I don't think they're going to bring in,
Colin Kaepernick. You don't think they're gonna go get Colin Kaepernick like you're seeing in the? It's a joke.
Yeah, no. And some of the rumors also, I've seen Philip Rivers. That would be my absolute nightmare. This is why I hate the Jets. Cromartie, LaDainian, and Rivers now, all possibly, being, ex-Jets. I mean, that just is ridiculous. And then I'm going to go to that game too. So Herbert versus Rivers, if that was to happen, my head would explode. But I don't think they're going to – I think they're going to bring someone that's going to – they're going to say, well, at least we're going to get a real good look at Zach Wilson right now. So if we bring in someone that's, that will push him and see how he reacts to something like that. But I don't think they're going to bring in a big name like a Matt Ryan, or the aforementioned. How about yourself? What do you think?
So I don't think they will either. I think they'll bring in some sort of savvy vet, right? That could on paper
Like
push for time.
Jacoby Brissett is such a good QB
Yeah,
too.
totally. I think they want this to be Zach because here's the reality. There's a lot of pressure on Salah and company, right? To get this thing. They've been talking about the Jets becoming an ascending team, especially the way things started last year versus the way they finished down the stretch. But the truth is, I think no matter what now, Salah gets that year buffer for the mere fact of like, hey, we were on the Aaron Rodgers train, like bad luck, nothing you can do about it. But look at the core of the rest of this team. They might be one of the youngest, most talented rosters in the NFL. And yes, we've seen the Zach Wilson story. We've seen it hasn't gone well, especially down the stretch last year. But I think they'd be perfectly okay with riding that out because next year is a very quarterback friendly draft at the top half of the draft. What if a really talented team based on a really fluke bad injury all of a sudden is in position to find a franchise quarterback with a ton of talent around them, not a team that is completely void of talent and would be picking there naturally. So I think that's the course of action we're going to see here.
Yeah, and last thing, I feel like you said before that Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas are, their seats are pretty warm right now. Going into the season, this was a make or break season. I felt like for both of them, and if they would have failed, obviously, I do feel like at least Saleh would have gotten fired because Douglas have had some success in the draft. But now, believe it or not, them perhaps running out Zach Wilson and actually Zach Wilson showing growth perhaps can preserve their job. It's a Hail Mary. I get it, right? Not saying it's going to happen either, but somehow, some way, Zach Wilson shows that he's at least capable of running a middle of the road offense because that's really all you need with this elite defense to be extremely competitive and probably playoff bound. That probably buys them, both of them, to get to next year.
I agree, right? I think the Aaron Rodgers injury just takes it from warm to cool, right? In terms of their being in the proverbial hot seat. Last piece right here. Is Josh Allen the reason why the Buffalo Bills can't get over the hump?
No, absolutely not. I think it's actually been poor roster construction. If you look at their offensive line, not really strong. They can't get a running game going, right? They rely too much on Allen to be their lead rusher. I don't care what you say. It looks great. It's fun, puts up stats. If your quarterback is your leading rusher, it's not the recipe for long-term success. Yeah, you can get through the season, but coming December, January, all those hits take take advantage there. So I don't think it's Josh Allen as well. Outside of Diggs, who else do you really have on that team that's a weapon? You could say Dalton Kincaid, but he's a rookie tight end. Rookie tight ends have one of the hardest transitions to the NFL. So you're really relying on a rookie tight end that's just really a big slot wide receiver. Their defense is a shell of itself when it comes to getting pressure against the quarterback, especially without Von Miller. They've lost some talented people on that defense as well. They've struck out in the draft as well. Here, the cornerback from Florida, it was Elam.
Yeah.
So like it's just poor roster construction, and if anything, Allen is probably the reason why they are as scary as as you would think, going into the season. But we both predicted this, Weston.
Yep.
In our show, we said, "Hey, Buffalo is not a bad team. They're just plateauing, and the other teams in the division are, you played catch up." And we literally both predicted this, and this is exactly what's happening. I don't think they've done enough to surround Allen, and make that team, keep on ascending.
Yeah, it's funny because after watching the game, you start to realize that, like, I agree with you. I don't think Josh Allen is the hindrance, right? If anything, I think he's why they're even mentioned in the breath of top tier AFC teams. They got some talent, obviously, up and down the roster, but there's some truth to this, right? Like in the sense of he does lead the NFL in turnovers since he's entered the league, right? 84 turnovers in 85 games played. That leads the league. I see a lot of forced plays, right? Where the guy feels like he needs to make the play and tries to do a little too much. So I understand this the sentiment to it, but we talked like you said, they're plateaued. They didn't do enough around the roster to do anything to get better. They kind of stayed stagnant, right? Like in terms of who they have and what they have from a weapon perspective. I just think like now the tape's out, right? Like now it's as obvious as ever. Like just if you can rattle 17 and take him out of the game, and if you can make him run versus, I mean, Jesus, like on Sunday night, it was like just let him throw the ball at that point. Don't let him run,
Yeah.
let him throw the ball because he was throwing to the Jets more than he was throwing to his own team. Just feel like there's the book's out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't give
Yeah.
up the big play, and you'll be all right.
See, I don't mind him, with those turnovers because those turnovers are the product of his dynamic play. So yeah, they are like the friendly fire, the casualties you're going to happen, throughout the game from like all the great plays he's going to make. Extremely reminiscent of Brett Favre. Brett Favre, you had those games where he threw 4 interceptions, and they still would win like a ugly game because they had a talented team. That defense in Green Bay back in the day was good with Gilbert Brown and what have you. They had a running game as well with Dorsey Levens. That's what the Bills don't have. They don't have their defense has regressed significantly. Their offensive line has regressed, and they don't have anyone to take the pressure off of Allen. So he has to play hero ball just for them to keep up with other teams.
He does,
and usually it works. Usually it works. Look at their records over the last couple of years. So I don't care about the turnovers because look at the record.
It just feels like in the big games it shows up the most. You know what I mean?
Was it his fault what happened against the Chiefs in Arrowhead that one time?
No.
Yeah, so
no, but
just saying.
I guess like after Sunday night's performance, there's a larger spotlight casted on like what's actually taking place. So we'll see how the rest of the season unfolds. All right, Lou, hometown takes.
You're really gonna make me do this?
I'm gonna make you do it. I'm just gonna let you know that when it comes to the Niners in this instance, like I always have a lot to say, but I'm not going to say a lot because I want to focus on some of the other topics.
Bullshit! You are the most long-winded motherfucker I know.
I'm working on it, damn it. I'm working on it.
You could run for Congress and be a professional like filibuster, bro.
I appreciate that because nobody else tells me I have a future in anything else. So go ahead. Chargers, Miami. Just telling you like this, bro. It was week 1, but that was the game of the year.
I come to the conclusion after watching this game is that watching football, in particular Charger football, is not really good for my mental health. It just puts me in such a bad position watching them. I was just thinking about it. So when I watched the Cowboys beat up on the Giants, that game was out of control and like after the first quarter.
Yeah.
I've never seen a Chargers, game like that before. It always comes down to the last couple of minutes. I can never relax. And what the problem is, it's not even against good teams. It'll be against bad teams like the Arizona Cardinals last year, what have you. That came down to the last second. So a lot of people are going to think I'm overreacting because it's week 1, bro. Relax. And I go, you know what I say to those people? Go fuck off. And let me tell you why. Because it's not just week 1. I've seen this for the last, for my whole fandom as a Charger fan, but in particular with this regime, I've seen this for the last 2+ years. The way they exited the playoffs last year and the way they started the regular season this year really goes to show me what this team's about, what this front office is about. It's the same old fucking Chargers. They have the mental lapses at inopportune times. They give up big play after big play after big play. They look great. They look great losing. That's who they Chargers are. That's who, and that's who they will ever be. Right. It just was an awful game, especially from the defensive standpoint. This is the 3rd game in a row that the defense has let up 30 fucking points. The head coach is supposed to be a defensive mastermind, and his defense has been straight up dog shit for the last 3 years. They couldn't get any pressure against a Dolphins offensive line who was without Teron Armstead. And also, frankly, fucking sucked. That's a bad offensive line, right? That is a bad offensive line. And I'm talking about number 52 and number 97. Didn't do enough. They are getting paid tremendous amount of money, did not affect the game enough. And I was extremely shocked about, right? So right then and there, all my negatives come from the defensive side of the ball. Kenneth Murray, that guy is a starter on the Chargers team. He has no feel for what the opposing offenses want to do. He literally, an empty set formation, I don't know why, but he took steps forward, approaching, he wasn't trying to blitz, but like steps forward to the line of scrimmage for coverage where there was no running back. There's a phantom running back. Like, it just blows my mind why they keep on throwing this guy out there. I know why they do, because he was a former first round pick and they're really trying to save face and trying to, fit a round peg into a square fucking hole here, but you got to cut your losses after a while. After a while, your draft slot don't mean shit. All right. We know who this guy is. He's played 29 games with this team. He's awful. He's a liability. Cannot diagnose a play. Cannot cover. The guy is just, he's the old adage, looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane type shit. Right. And then looking at this game, just a poorly coached team that really did not execute on situational plays. I know people are going to think I'm crazy, but I'm being completely objective. Herbert played efficient, right? That's not what I'm looking for.
You're looking for spectacular.
Yeah. Now, Herbert was fine, but I'm not saying I'm worried about Herbert at all. I'm not. I love Herbert. I think he's fantastic. I still think he's a top 5 quarterback, especially if you look around like all the other quarterbacks in the league, what they did, week one. And I get week one's kind of fluky. I get that. But there is this little speckle in the back of my head starting to realize, is Herbert's conservativeness nature really affecting him being able to pull the ball down? I really feel like he needs more Josh Allen. He needs more, fuck it, just whatever. He needs more Brett Favre or Ryan Fitzpatrick, just someone down there is going to catch it type shit. Not saying all the time, but he needs that hero ball in him. But he is so against making the wrong play. He always wants to make the right play. Sometimes the right play is not the right play, right? So those are my, what really grinds my gears, as Peter Griffin would say. Not all was lost, though, right? There was some good, especially on the offensive side of the ball. First, let's start with what I think is perhaps the most positive thing that came out on Sunday. The Chargers already have a contingency plan for the next head coach to replace Brandon Staley, and his name is Kellen Moore. I know it's week one, but Kellen Moore.
You said that was the biggest acquisition for the team in the offseason.
I know. Well, they didn't do shit, so yeah.
I know, but you and I both know why, because it was, when this thing doesn't work out, this is probably the guy they're going to turn to first.
Kellen Moore was able to do something in one game that, Brandon Staley hasn't been able to do in 3 years, on his side of the ball. And he completely changed and revamped this rushing attack, which was straight up beautiful. It really was. Last year, the Chargers were inconsistent and awful from a rushing standpoint. Week one, they had a generational fucking, rushing attack. It was like one of the top 5 best rushing game performances in the last 10 years. Right, he just
233 yards on
the yards per carry. Like,
5.8.
I'm telling you, man, the different formations. He was able to do something in one game where Staley couldn't do, in 2+ years, right, on his side of the ball. Think about this. LA also put up 34 points, and that's with none of their starters playing in the preseason and learning a new offense. You would expect some rust, to this team. There wasn't any. They had a plan, they had execution, they did it. And the fact that everyone was on page was extremely impressive. I was expecting a little more I'm going to say how Hurts from the Eagles played. It was rusty when Hurts was playing against the Patriots, but no, they looked in midseason form. This offense, the offensive line looked good.
Yeah.
Right. Slater. He was phenomenal stopping Bradley Chubb, who's one of the most overrated edge players in the NFL. He's back to form, which is fantastic. You always get nervous someone's coming off an injury. Will they be as dominant? Nope. He was extremely boring. He locked down that left side. The whole offensive line was pleasant. I thought did a fantastic job against a pretty talented though Miami front four. Especially their defensive tackles. Those are a load to handle, Wilkins and Sire, right? Last but not least, it's good that they finally found their RB2 in Joshua Kelly, because they're going to need him. Eckler's banged up already, right? Last year they didn't have an RB2. They relied heavily on a 5'11", 215-pound running back. But now Joshua Kelly looked phenomenal in this scheme. And in addition, he looked quick, decisive, and it was really impressive. And this is something I kind of expected when I thought the Chargers were going to draft Bijan Robinson. I'm like, I kind of feel like Joshua Kelly is kind of like the Pollard in this offense. And I thought Isaiah Spiller would have been like the Zeke, So I felt like Kellen Moore already had those players in mind in his offense. But so kudos to, for Kelly for stepping up. They're going to need him. Let's see what happens. But the offense looked good. Defense, chip, dog poop.
Yeah. Here's my 2 cents. As a fan who has nothing at stake for these two teams, very exciting game. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. Like your biggest gripe is with your own defense. I would say same could be said for Miami, right? You're talking about 70 total points scored in this game, shattering an over. You're talking about nearly 1,000 total yards of offense. So for like the outside fan, what was it, like 6 lead changes or something like that, like in the game, like just a lot of back and forth down to the wire, everything you can ask for when you're just sitting back and watching a football game, which is what I was doing at this point in time. I was so excited about this matchup, actually, especially since I've been such a huge supporter of Justin Herbert and such a huge detractor of Tua Tagovailoa. I didn't even have to use my NFL ticket for my own team. They were actually on Fox in our region. I used the ticket for the first time under YouTube for this game. And there were 2 other televised games in our local market. So I was really excited about it. But I agree with you. Like the conundrum here is like, why is the defensive minded head coach? Why is this the constant struggle? You have some big names on that defense. It's an issue. Like, again, against a very porous offensive line, zero sacks, right? You're talking about between Bosa and Mack, 3 combined tackles. You just need a little bit more, but I'm sure it has happened in the NFL. I can't remember the last time it was this obvious that I watched a team run for over 200 yards on the ground and lead in time of possession and lost the football game. Like those things just don't seem,
man,
they're not synonymous with losses,
There's a reason why the term chargering exists.
Yeah.
It's not just a joke. It's they're literally like the Thurman Munson. The Roy Munson for my Kingpin fans of the NFL. They Munson. They fuck up. That's what they do. And you know what the problem, real quick, with problem with Staley, his defense, he doesn't adapt to his players' strengths. He's trying to force these players into his scheme. Your scheme ain't working, bro. These players are just not working in your scheme. You need to go back to the drawing board because they didn't make any adjustments throughout the game.
It's had spot moments in his tenure, but not nearly consistent enough.
When you're saying spot moments, you're like, oh, they didn't suck as much as they used to, for like a game or two. You're not calling them good. You're not. No, you're just saying, wow, they pleasantly shocked us. They weren't as shitty as they were.
But the good news is the NFL. That's week 1. We've seen crazier things happen. But you got to be, like you said, about the offense. 34 points. Traditionally, that's
no,
enough to win a football game. You
no,
just can't
because
give up 35, then you gave up 36, you know?
that's the thing. That's the thing. Yeah, they score. They're one of the top most scoring offense over the last couple of years, but their defense is so. The Chargers are not a good team. I'm not saying they're a bad team, but they're not a good team. They are a mediocre team because their offense is fantastic and their defense is towards the bottom.
Yeah.
Those are gonna counteract each other, and that puts you right in the middle, and you're never going to be a serious contender when you have that glaring weakness.
Yeah. Week 1, baby. Week 1.
Yeah,
We move.
It's a sunnier days.
Yeah, sunnier days, especially in California. So 49ers travel to Pittsburgh. Obvious outcome of this game was a 49er win, 30-7. I'm going to start with the bad. Because there was
bad?
some. What?
There was bad?
Yeah, there's bad. The right side of the offensive line is a huge liability right now. Whether it's penalties, pass pro, missed blocking assignments, Spencer Burford, Colton McKivitz. There's work to do. And the more obvious problem is there's not even anybody on the team that you can be like, well, might as well give that person a shot. Like they are the best of what is on the team, right? To be in that position. Now I'll give McKivitz a little bit of a break here. Like it was TJ Watt, right? Like we're not talking about a slouch. You're talking about somebody whose name is always brought up for defensive player of the year. But dude had 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, right? Like he ate during this game. And he might have been the only Steeler player that ate. Special teams continues to be an issue for this team. And when I say special teams, I am specifically referring to our kickoff team. Why we do not just kick the ball out of the end zone and let them start at the 25 every time is beyond me, because these teams are bringing it back. Like, and it gets like these special team coaches like find something, because the first one they'll return to like the 28-yard line. The next one they'll return to like the 36-yard line, then to the 40. Like it just gets progressively better for the return team. So these are things, right? Some penalties. There was a lot of penalties in the game. You certainly want to clean some of that up. Couple receivers running open where Pickett just didn't make the throw or put it on the money or whatever it was, that like, a catch here or there certainly changes the tide. Instead of being 3 and out, maybe they move the chains, whatever it might be, changes momentum, etc. That's the bad. The good for me is pretty much most everything else. Because here's the truth. I did my own little pregame show like the night before, and I actually predicted the Pittsburgh Steelers to win this game. The 49ers had a really rough offseason, focus on the quarterback, then dragging this Nick Bosa extension on and on and on and on, and getting them signed like right before. Just felt like typical 49er offseason under the Shanahan era. And they have traditionally started very slow. Now you're traveling to the East Coast to play the equivalent of a 10 a.m. game, based on your body's time, against a Mike Tomlin coach team that, by all accounts, based on preseason performance and how they ended last year, ascending team, right? And the bigger thing here is a Mike Tomlin team, right? There's a reason why he's coaching this league for 17 years. Well, 16, this is 17, and has never finished below 500, right? Like,
and that's a hostile environment too.
It really, bro, did you see how many 49er fans were at this game, by the way?
Yeah.
Might as well have been impressive. A home. Pittsburgh fans were like, I've read all these quotes and all these articles, like people like talking at the airport, like I've never seen. They're like, we do this to other teams. We've never seen this done to us. And it's true. Like the 49ers, Cowboys, Steelers, they're the teams that travel because they were the teams of the 70s, 80s, early 90s. So they have the most countrywide fans that make these games a little bit more accessible, not just a local fan base. But in any case, I picked the Steelers to lose this game. To win this game. Yeah. But I've said this, Lou, how many times? I'm still not the biggest believer in Brock Purdy, right? And
all he does is win games, though.
I mean, but also that's what Jimmy did too, right? At the end of the day, his guy won a lot of games. He didn't
look like
this.
Not like this.
No, not like this with the offensive humming, etc. I am changing my tune. I still think the sample size is not large enough to have like a final judgment on this person. But last year at the end of the year felt very much like lightning in a bottle, right? With a really good team around him, like a arguably the most talented roster in the NFL around him. How good did he have to be? But I saw a lot of things in this game that just like make me think that he's just poised beyond his experience. He's just really comfortable in the pocket. He baits a lot of players. What was most impressive to me is he doesn't have a big time arm, right? I can name 20 quarterbacks in the NFL that have a stronger starting quarterbacks that have a stronger arm than he does. But he made a couple what I would call big boy throws in this game. And what I mean by that is he showed me that he can make every throw on Kyle Shanahan's tree route, but he does the one thing that all great quarterbacks do that make them look great is they allow, instead of just throwing to an only open receiver or an open window, throwing it to a player and saying, my player's better than yours. If I get this ball here, they're going to make the play. So if you saw that second touchdown catch by Ayuk over Patrick Peterson, that to me is one of those big boy throws, like one-on-one on the outside, put the ball where it needs to be. He doesn't have to be open. Ayuk's going to get this ball. That's my trust, right? And that takes confidence. You mentioned about how Herbert doesn't want to make that mistake, right? Sometimes where, and I'm not saying I think they're all afraid to make that mistake, but that like cockiness and confidence is saying, I'm going to throw that ball there. There was a couple plays booting out, rolling left, coming across his body, hitting Debo 17, 18 yards down the field, like certain things that like that. I'm like, whoa, I haven't seen this from a 49er quarterback in quite some time. And I made this comment with Steph on Monday when we recapped the game about, for the first time in a long time, when my quarterback drops back, I'm not like, oh shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not like, oh man, like where's this ball gonna end up? You know, especially because the way the camera angles are, you don't see the receivers, right? You only see the quarterback. Exactly. Like once he releases this ball, where's it gonna go? I don't have that feeling right now. I don't.
That's a good feeling. And I remember when we covered Jimmy G, you know, on the Niners, especially in the red zone, you would always have knots in your stomach and be like, if he doesn't look through his first progression or second, like you're like, oh shit, it's a turn. He's gonna turn this over, and that just shows the maturity of Brock Purdy, and he understands the system, you know, of Kyle Shanahan, trusting his playmakers. He doesn't need to, you know, I think what really helps Purdy and him being successful is the talent and the cast around him. They can shoulder the load for him. And what I mean by that, they can turn that 7-yard pass into like a 17-yard pass. Also, I think we're really downplaying the imperative factor that Christian McCaffrey is.
Oh my God.
I think it's all I think as long as he stays, you know, you gotta have him stay healthy. But I think he makes defensive coordinators stay up at night because of what he can do, especially in this offense. I think as long as Purdy has McCaffrey, I think you know your offense will be fine because you can at least run the ball.
Yeah. I do. Here's another negative. I was very upset towards the end of this game when the game was at that point out of reach and you're still seeing McCaffrey get handoffs at the end of the game. I'm like, this is what you have Elijah Mitchell for. This is what you have Jordan Mason for. Like, go ahead, run the ball, impose your will. I get all of what you're doing, but why does
see what you have in them? Yes, what you have in them. But you know what that is? The downfall of your team will be Kyle Shanahan's hubris, meaning like his arrogance.
It's not even his arrogance.
It is, man.
The ghosts of Christmas past.
No,
it's the Super Bowl being up 28-3 and how that game came back. It was week 1 2 years ago against the Detroit Lions where they had this massive lead and all of a sudden Detroit made this a really close game because they pulled the starters. Things like that where it's like, I get it.
I disagree. I think he wanted to make a statement game week 1 on the road, and for people who chastise him for picking Purdy over Trey Lance. And I think Kyle Shanahan's a fantastic coach, brilliant coach, great offensive mind.
But he's arrogant as fuck.
He's arrogant as fuck.
And I love it. The other thing that I'll say, good, like, listen, defense balled out, right? Like Drake Jackson, 3
yeah.
sacks.
I mean, that's to be expected.
To be expected, but I wasn't expecting that because this is a little bit of a different wrinkle, right? This isn't the extension of Robert Saleh when things were great with him and then his protege and D'Amico Ryans. Like, this is Steve Wilkes. Like, he's got his own name, his own reputation. But what I loved about Steve is he didn't change much, even though everything told us he was going to change things, right? Like, to your point, he called the game plan to the strength of the defense, which was created and built by Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans, right? Like, the talent is here, was to fit that scheme, and he molded that really well. Defense played really well. Listen, offense played really well. There's clearly not enough ball to go around because here's a game where the team put up 30 points and you barely heard Deebo Samuel's name. You barely heard George Kittle's name, right? But let me tell you something, and I've been saying this. Brandon Ayuk is the best wide receiver on this team, and it's not even close. Like, as a wide receiver, by definition, like, Deebo's a better playmaker, but my God, what Ayuk does in his routes, the way he blocks downfield, like everything about him, like, pay this man right now based on the money you just freed up. Like, don't even wait. Pay him now. Get him his bag mid-season so you don't have to deal with the drama in the offseason and the divaness, etc.
Come on. You need to have
I'm over the stressful off seasons. I'm so over it. But listen, big win, right? Like, it's been a
not
long
only
time
was it a
since we
big
started
win,
this way. It was a convincing win.
It was a relaxing win. It was a relax. Oh, come
there
on.
was a moment. There was a moment.
Shut up.
No, there was a moment to, like, this is changing a little bit, right? Like, it's not humming the way it was. Like, are we getting a little conservative? Like, this is the knock on Kyle too, dude. Is sometimes he has a hard time choking out the opponent. You know,
I'm going to ask you one question. When you're lying on your couch, or sitting back on your couch, did you ever kind of crouch up or sit up and get closer to the TV, like a little nervous? No, you had none of that. You might have had an eyebrow.
You haven't watched
raised.
Football games with me, Lou. First of all, I don't sit down. I'm standing in front of the TV pacing the entire time anyway. But nice to see.
Yeah.
Complete opposite of my expectations, right? Like, I had totally different expectations rolling into that game, and I was fine with it because I know not all is lost in a week 1 loss. You know what I mean? Like, listen, we just saw the Kansas City Chiefs lose spoil their ring ceremony. They're probably still going to win the Super Bowl. Like, nobody is going to care about it in the grand scheme of things. Like, we watched Dallas Cowboys put up a 40 burger on the New York Giants. I don't think the Dallas Cowboys are that. You know what I mean? Like, it's week 1 does funny things. It is the epitome of knee-jerk reactions with no sample size for the remainder of the year. But if this team stays healthy, that's always the caveat for every NFL team. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better team than the San Francisco 49ers right now across the NFL, not just in the NFC, across the NFL. All right, Lou, I'm going to let you lead. Who's freaking out and why?
Well, the low-hanging fruit would be a team from East Rutherford.
Kendall Park, you mean? Or Florham Park? Are they Florham Park or Kendall? Florham Park, New Jersey.
Yeah, whatever. I'm not gonna say that team. That team should never remain nameless. We all know you Jeff fans should be freaking out, right? But I'm gonna flip the script here. It's the team from Chicago, the Bears. Bears fans should be freaking out because guess what? Like I've said, how many times have I said this? I am not a Justin Fields truther, right? And everyone was saying this is the year that Fields is going to really, mature and progress because they added some weapons. And no. Just like the New York Jets, the Chicago Bears don't have a quarterback. They don't. He is awful at progressing through reads. He's an awful decision maker, and the offense was straight up clunky as shit. I felt like they weren't on the same page. Players like Chase Claypool looks disinterested, and they traded a 2nd-round pick for him, a 2nd-round pick, which was the first pick in the 2nd round. I'm sorry. Justin Fields is not it. And you're back. This was supposed to be your year. Rodgers is gone. The Vikings are going to regress. This is our year. No.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never been a believer, right? I just think there's some teams that just like the New York Jets are one of them. Like I laughed. One of our listeners texted me. It was like, dude, my favorite part of your show, the last week when we did the show, was when you laughed when Lou picked the Jets to win the AFC East. Because in my head, I just know better, right? Some teams are cursed, are mismanaged, like charging, as you would say, is a term for a reason, right? Because there's a curse somewhere. But the Bears are one of those as well, like, I mean, dude, they essentially traded the first round picks for DJ Moore. For what? I didn't see him. I saw him in the preseason game where he took the one throw to him to the house, but I didn't see anything last week against the not great defense, right? Like it's perplexing, but it's not shocking by any means. I'm not going to say the Jets either, even though I have them here. I'm just going to say Broadway Joe really did sell his soul to the devil and permanently curse the quarterback position for the New York Jets. Like, this literally happened. I believe in alternate universes, and this like legitimately actually happened. Like, you can't make it up. But I told you, go back and look at history. I said, signing Aaron Rodgers is not going to matter. This is still the New York Jets. And I was proven right in 4 snaps. Like, it's just still the New York Jets. So I'm going to say the Denver Broncos freaking out. Now, I picked this as a team that might surprise some people, right? Like, based on last year's performance only, not going to, different expectations under Sean Payton. But I saw literally nothing different compared to last year. I saw a team against the Raiders and Jimmy Garoppolo, who's one of the most sackable quarterbacks in the NFL. Zero sacks, right? Against this team. I saw, hey, you thought Sean Payton come in, let Russell Wilson cook a little bit, do some things, blah, blah, blah. I saw a 5.2 yards per complete. I know he threw 2 touchdowns and he didn't throw any interceptions, but he wasn't moving the ball. You know what I mean? Their leading receiver was Samaje Perine. That was their leading receiver, is your running back. And Samaje Perine, spoiler alert, does not line up in the slot, does not split out. He's not a wide back. You know what I mean? He's not any of those things. He is a running back. So what did I see? I saw Russell Wilson have a clean game that was check down after check down after check down after check down. And I feel like this entire year is going to be a check down, and they're going to run Russell Wilson out of town. Sean Payton is going to intentionally run this man out of town. That's what I saw. So of the Denver Broncos, bringing in Sean Payton, all that did is delay your hopes and expectations for another 2 or 3 years if he's even still there.
Yeah.
You got another one?
I do, from a positive standpoint.
Let's do it.
You were talking about, and rightfully so, your San Francisco 49ers. I thought the Dallas Cowboys fans should be freaking out in a positive way. To go into, you come here in New York, New Jersey, wherever you want to, call it, and to hold a team from scoring is really hard.
In the end, this is still the NFL. This is still the NFL. It's a very difficult thing to do.
Not only that, but damn, that defense was flying around. What really separates them from the years before is the fact that they got 2 great cornerbacks now. Trayvon Diggs. I know you might think Diggs is overrated, but he is a playmaker. He gambles a lot.
Absolutely a playmaker. He's just a gambler.
Now you got the guy Gilmore across from him, Stephon Gilmore, which he's not a gambler. He's more, he's very sticky. So they can match up. Their safeties are deep. Their linebackers are deep. Now they have some beef in the middle with Osi Udugazawa and, Mozzie Smith. Like, that defense, I'm not saying it's better than yours, but it's going to be close. It's going to be interesting because they have such a deep rotation amongst the defensive line. And I think Dak is a good enough quarterback to get them to where they are, where they have to go. So I will say, from a positive standpoint, that was really encouraging. Now they have I think one game against the Cardinals, not this week, but they have like 2 more winnable games, and they can easily start 3-0, and that's a huge thing to get off. Start the season off.
Yeah, listen, I won't argue this point, right? Where
Carson looks so
I
good,
will
man.
argue. I mean, dude, we've all said this. Micah Parsons is a savage, right?
You know, I've had a man crush on him since like at Penn State.
Since before he got into the league, right? You have, and that's documented on this podcast. But what I will say is, like, I'm not disputing that the Cowboys looked really good in all facets of the game on Sunday night. What I'm saying is, like, there's this big brother, little brother syndrome. They have owned the New York Giants, I think, 12 consecutive times now at this point that they have beaten the Giants. And it tends to be an opening day game. What I will dispute is I don't think yet that they are a better defense than the San Francisco 49ers. But spoiler alert, I also don't think the San Francisco 49ers are the best defense in the NFL. That's spoiler alert for you. Because I'm going to mention this in a coming segment, if you will. I just need to see, again, the Cowboys are another team that it's like all looks well in the regular season, right? And then in the big game, what happens, right? In the big game, what's going to happen? So listen, they're starting the right way, 40 burger to 0. Like, that is wild in the NFL. That's wild.
That's like college football.
That's ridiculous. That's like when Alabama would take on insert one AA program, right? Yeah. Or FCS football, whatever it's called now. But I agree. But
it pains you. You don't want to.
It's still a Mike McCarthy led team. No, it doesn't pain me. But yeah, it pains me because I fucking hate the Cowboys. Dude.
Yeah, exactly. It pains.
All right. I got one more positive freaking out. My Detroit Lions, baby. Did you leave this one for me? Because I feel like you could have just as easily taken this one.
Yeah,
how can you not be excited? They ended the year so well last year and then just continuing to form. They went into Arrowhead to open the season and spoiled that ring ceremony for the defending champs. Like, don't give me the asterisk nonsense, Mike Tirico. Like, that is not a good look comment when all is said and done. Like, you can't be a commentator saying, well, this wins with an asterisk, right? Like, a win is a win. You can only play your schedule. And they didn't injure Travis Kelce, right? You know what I mean? That he wasn't there. But they outplayed not just by the win, they outplayed the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the biggest thing for the Lions is, can they do this all year and hang with the big boys, or are they going to have some of those flutter
up and downs?
Those flutters throughout the season. But on a side note, I will say, like, this is a little concerning for the Kansas City Chiefs, right?
Stop.
No, not the loss, not the loss. Just
nothing concerning. There's nothing concerning.
Just wow. The offense really does look different when there's no Travis Kelce there, right? Like, we thought that would happen with, like, no Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. It was very fluky. How many drops did Tony have that were right there? He makes half of those catches. The game's over. Like,
but we've never seen. The problem is beyond 87. There is literally nobody you can trust on that offense right now.
Yeah, I think. Listen, all you need is.
Do you trust Kadarius Toney? Because he wasn't really that good last year there.
Listen, I trust Mahomes.
I trust Andy Reid.
So real quick, making a quick switch, and then we can go to the next segment. The Colts quarterback Richardson didn't look as raw as people thought he was going. He looked pretty poised.
I was going to put this in hot topics, but I wanted to be conservative, and I'm so glad you brought this up.
Just saying something. He looked pretty damn good against the Jaguars.
He's going to be the best rookie out of this class, hands down.
Well, I don't believe in Stroud because so
he's going
rookie of the year. You think rookie of the year?
I think based on what I saw yesterday, if he last week, if he stays healthy, like, like, dude is pretty poised in the pocket. He's got a big time arm, man.
And they don't have really too many weapons out there for him to put up some numbers.
And he can move. He can just move. You know what I mean? Now he's gonna suffer from Josh Allen syndrome. Like, dude, you got to go out of bounds. You got to slide. You got to
Cam
do
Newton.
those things.
Remember
Yeah,
Cam Newton rookie
you got to
year?
preserve your body a little bit, and you're going to play quarterback in this league for 12 to 15 years if you can do it. And while you're learning to preserve, you got to learn how to play in the pocket. But
Yeah.
honestly, what I saw in the pocket,
I thought he was fine.
yeah. But he's
Not
going to
as
be
raw,
better
not
than
as
any of the
raw,
quarterbacks
yeah,
in that
not
draft.
as raw as a
No,
lot of people
totally
were
not.
saying.
All right.
Okay.
Speaking of good individual performances, offensive defensive player of the week. I'd prefer to start with the defense. So
Go ahead.
Lou, who's your defensive guy?
My defensive guy, there's only one guy that should be the defensive player of the week. It's Jordan Whitehead, safety of the New York Jets, for the fact that he got 3 interceptions against the Buffalo Bills.
No.
Now, fantastic game, but here's the reason why Jordan Whitehead is my player of the week. Because of those 3 interceptions he got against the Buffalo Bills, he got a bonus already, and his annual bonus of $250,000, because that was part of his contract. That if he had 3 interceptions for the year, he gets an additional $250,000. So in one game, this guy got $250,000 just from his play. I'm telling you, if that's not the defensive player of the week, I don't know who the fuck is.
I hope I'm not misrepresenting this, but I think he's never had 3 interceptions in a year since he's been in the league. And he had 3 in week 1 of the NFL season. So I had Jordan Whitehead here just to not be redundant. I always have a backup plan. TJ Watt. I mean, you always say, Lou, you don't even talk about a defender, unless it's 3 sacks in a game, right?
Minimum 3. Yep.
He had 3. He had a tackle for a loss. He had a pass defense. He had 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, and arguably should have had a second fumble recovery if Brock Purdy somehow didn't strategically pin it against his lower back for long enough to show possession. To me, he was the only Pittsburgh Steeler that showed up in this game, and it was evident. Like, he abused Colton McKivitz and this offensive line, but they always line him up over the right tackle. He's been making a living abusing right tackles this entire time. So I had Jordan Whitehead, but I always have a backup plan.
TJ Watt. Okay.
It's smart strategy, Nick Bosa's no different. Nick Bosa, I would say the vast majority of the time is going to line up over your right tackle. Like, why would you not put your best pass rusher against what should be the second best offensive lineman on your team versus the first? Like, you're going to line you're going to line TJ Watt up over Trent Williams all game long. Like, I'm pretty sure Trent's going to mitigate that impact. You know what I mean? Like, you need to have him be impactful. It's just sound strategy when all's said and done. All right. Offensive player of the week.
All right. So it pains me to do this, but I got to eat my humble pie. It has to be Tyreek Hill. What he did against the Los Angeles Chargers was nothing short of spectacular. He had 11 receptions for 215 yards and 2 touchdowns. This guy has fucking cursed the Chargers since he's been with the Chiefs, and now he's with the Dolphins. It's just insane. And some of the catches, like, I don't even know how he caught some of the balls, especially the fade, in the end zone. Michael Davis was all on top of him. I don't know how the ball even got to them, and him have the awareness and the concentration to catch it and bring it down was so impressive. It's just gut-wrenching when you see him have the ball in his hand and you see so much green to the left or the right of him, knowing, like, fuck, he's minimum getting at least 17 to 20 yards extra. He's a scary dude, man. And the guy's like 5'10", 5'11". So Tyreek Hill, man, hats off.
He's a difference maker. By the way, while you were talking, I just looked it up. Jordan Whitehead has never had more than 2 interceptions in a single season in his career, and he had 3 in week 1.
Don't be a homer. Don't say Ayuk. You need to say go ahead.
I'm going to eat my humble pie.
Say it.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Yes.
466 yards in the air, 3 TDs, a pick. Now, full caveat here. I did have Tyreek 1. I had Tua 2. McCaffrey 3, Ayuk 4, right? I even had Jordan Love up there because he played a really clean game in his first, in the opening week of 2023. Reason why I had Tua 2, though, is because he did throw a pick, And he did also fumble the ball twice and lose one of those fumbles, right? So it wasn't the cleanest of games.
Oh,
But
jeez.
why I'm going to give him the nod here is because I'm one of the biggest pundits against Tua, and that's not changing for me. One game does not change that all.
When do you start thinking that like maybe you were a little wrong? You thought he was going to be a bust.
Yeah, I need a couple more games like that this year, and I need to see him finish a season, right? Like otherwise, great. You can throw for 566 yards in a game, but if you can't finish the season and you can't propel your team to the next, like, I'm not gonna say you're a bust, but like it could be anybody out there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But why I'm giving him this nod here, outside of you stealing my guy, is the things that I've knocked Tua about: a deep ball, right? Pressure in your face, completing these passes, um, accuracy from the pocket, not just like on the move towards his left, like certain things that I've been strongly critical of him about. He actually did pretty well in this game. So I will give credit where credit is due, but I think I'm fair, dude, in reserving judgment and shit. I just told you about my own quarterback that I'm not anointing him. You know what I mean? Like I need to see more. And there's still a few things that I need. Like I'm the fucking, I'm the final say in everything. But I just, week 1 things looked really good for the Miami Dolphins and for Tua Tagovailoa.
All right. All right.
All right. Obviously, we got week 2 coming up. Tell me, what sticks out to you on the schedule?
All right. So the one thing I'm watching for, I'm looking at all of the top quarterbacks in the AFC. I'm talking about your Justin Herbert, your Josh Allen, your Joe Burrow, your Patrick Mahomes, all 0-1. And I'm looking to see how they rebound. Do they even out, their record and make it have a hockey sticks of 1-1? Or do one of these teams go to 0-2? These talented teams that we know for the whole offseason, we're lauding how great these players are, because it's hard to come back from an 0-2, start of a season. Putting a lot of pressure. You're putting a lot of pressure.
Sure is. I think that's part of me why, I'm so intrigued by this Baltimore Cincinnati game, right? Because Baltimore can either build a nice little cushion over last year's division winner and expected division winner for this year, but last week's Cincinnati game was concerning.
Yeah,
I don't think Burrow eclipsed 100 yards passing.
I get that. Listen, I'm not sure if you remember in our preseason forecast, I said I think I had them winning like 13 games, the Bengals, and I said that's me including them losing against the Browns week 1.
Yeah,
I thought they're going to be rusty. I really did. Burrow couldn't practice for the majority. I think we need to. I hate to keep on bringing him up, but to have that Aaron Rodgers type of relax moment here.
Yeah.
Relax. He's too talented.
Yeah. I'm really intrigued by this KC Jacksonville game.
Yeah.
Coming up. Like, I can't remember the last time I saw an Andy Reid team start 0-2.
Yeah.
It's
Jacksonville, because I'm not a believer in Jacksonville, and they're like, oh, Lou, how the hell can you say that? After what they did to you in the playoffs. I get it. I think they're just the benefactor of being a part of a weak division in the AFC South. If they can beat the Kansas City Chiefs, now that would give me some pause and be like,
yeah,
maybe they have their plate in their hand and they're coming to the big boy table now.
yeah. Anything else you got?
No.
I got one other game specifically, and it goes to your comment before, and it's the Jets at the Cowboys. I fully expect the Cowboys to win this football game. Like that's not
close. I think it'll be
that's
very
why
close.
Not why I'm watching. But what did I just say about like this Cowboys team and facing stiffer competition? And here's my spoiler: after what I just saw on Monday night, not just after week 1, but what I saw, throughout the year last year, and they added players. I firmly believe this New York Jets defense is the best defense in the NFL. That being said, like, okay, now I know they'll win this game because I know their defense will mop up on Zach Wilson and whatever's happening. But how's that going to look when he gets that type of competition, right? Like at all 3 levels, they have a solid defensive line, solid linebackers, and they got one hell of a secondary. So we'll see. Like, I mean, dude, Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, 49er legend, DJ Reed, by the way. These guys are players. Whitehead just had 3 picks.
Gardner got lit up last game. Just saying.
Listen, he's another one though. That is the position. It's feast or famine as a cornerback. You're on an island, so you're on full display. But if you make enough flashy plays, everybody's going to forget about the ones where you got burnt on. That's what I mean. That is literally Diggs in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
Like he gets burned just as much, but when he ends the season with 7-8 picks, you're like, those are probably in big opportune moments, when that actually happened and he gambled right. All right, moment of truth, Lou.
Pick'ems.
Hold on, let me bring up the schedule here. Let me bring it up. Week 2. Beginning tomorrow evening, Minnesota Vikings at the Philadelphia Eagles.
It's a night game. It's a primetime game. Yeah. Kirk Cousins, doesn't show up for those.
Eagles, I mean, Jesus, they got out of the gate, but they let a bad team hang around, and made that pretty scary. But this is
the Eagles are a younger team now with a lot of those players on defense that are coming up. But that's going to happen. But they're still too talented, and I feel like the Vikings' offensive line is really banged up already.
This is not about the Eagles. This is about Kirk Cousins on primetime game, period. We saw this story last year when they played each other on a primetime game, and the Eagles dragged them up and down the field. But this is what I think people are forgetting about the Eagles. They're a very talented football team, right? They didn't have much roster churn, right? But they had churn at your offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. That's going to upset the apple cart a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it's inevitable.
That's a lot.
There's new changes and new wrinkles. So I'm Eagles too on this one. So let's get into the Sunday slate. 1:00 games. You got the Packers at the Falcons.
Give me the Packers. I'm not a believer in the Falcons. I just felt like the only reason why they defeated the Panthers is because the Panthers started a rookie quarterback.
Yeah. I agree. Raiders, Bills.
I think this is going to be closer than people think because I do think the Raiders are going to try to bludgeon the Bills with their rushing attack. But I do think Josh Allen will rebound and they'll beat the Raiders.
Hard for me to pick against them at home too, coming off of what they just came off of, right? You got to think there's, week to week, sometimes you just get up for a game and you got to get up for this game. Bills. All right. Here's a big one. Ravens at the Bengals.
Oof. I'm going to say the Bengals. Bengals, I feel like they've owned the Ravens as of late, even with, Lamar Jackson playing. I do feel like they're going to rebound. Already, the Ravens have lost, Dobbins, and they have a rotation, which I'm not really too scared of when they're running backs. So I'm going Bengals here.
Okay. I am too. I think the J.K. Dobbins loss is going to be significant for
because
Baltimore.
they don't want Lamar to run the ball as much. So they want more of a traditional rushing attack. And I'm sorry, Justice Hill, Gus Edwards, they're fine and all, but
it's different beast.
Yeah.
And I just think the Bengals, again, embarrassment will do funny things to you within the division, right? And you're gonna and yes, the Bengals have played historically the Ravens very well under Zach Taylor and over the last few years.
Yeah.
Let me go first so you don't think I'm picking the same teams on this one.
Okay, I was just about to say that. Great minds think alike.
All right. Maybe. Wait, what movie is that? When he's like, Ron. Oh, it's Ron. Ron Burgundy. I hate Will Ferrell, by the way. All right, Seahawks at the Lions. Oh, this is so hard for me. I gotta take the Lions. I'm taking the Seahawks.
Wow. Wrong move there. It's written down, so it's official.
It's official.
Seahawks are possibly without both of their starting offensive tackles. They're playing away in Detroit. Detroit has extra time. Give me the Lions all day and twice on Sundays.
Yeah. I just think the Lions coming off a little bit of high, right? Like
could be a little rusty.
I understand what, we're saying here, and I know Seattle looked very human last week, right? And not the team that everybody was touting them to be. But I can't help but feel that they just overlooked their division opponent because everybody just picked the Rams to just be god awful. Like I feel like they were already prior to that game installing game plan for the Lions. Like I honestly believe that in my mind. So I'm just gonna go. Listen, I would love to see the Seahawks start 0-2. Like I would love to, but it's not the way my life works. All right. Your Los Angeles Chargers at the Tennessee Titans. I'm saying Chargers. Tennessee is not a good football team, dude.
I guess the Chargers, but you see how convinced I am right now. Like
I get it. You're cautioned, but like, listen, Ryan Tannehill, is not going to do what Tua Tagovailoa did.
Yeah, instead So fine, great. You know, the Tennessee Titans won't
Derrick Henry's going to run for 2.
Yeah, he's going to exactly. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
Bears at Bucks.
Ooh, you know what? Give me the Bucks.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. We talked about it, just non-believers in the Chicago Bears, and honestly, Bucks fooled me last weekend, right? Like I didn't. That was not.
I'm not Minnesota. I mean, I would have thought.
I picked Minnesota to win the division, bro.
Yeah, well,
and I stand by it. Stand by it. All right, Kansas City Chiefs at the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going first. I'm taking the Jaguars.
I'm taking Kansas City. I just feel like Kelsey's probably going to play. I think them having those extra days off, Andy Reid will be in his bag to come up with some crazy shit. Think about this. Anthony Richardson looked pretty good against that Jacksonville defense. What do you think Mahomes and Reid is going to do?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Fair.
Just saying.
Colts, Texans.
Give me the Colts.
I'm Colts on this one too. This to me boils down to who's got the better quarterback right now, and Richardson impresses me more than Stroud does at this point.
You can go first. Next one.
They're both very bad teams. San Francisco 49ers at the Los Angeles Rams. I can't pick against the 49ers right now. And I can't pick against them against the LA Rams because this will be 9 straight. They've won 8 straight. Now I will say this. Rams looked pretty good last week, right? Stafford looked pretty healthy. Aaron Donald looked pretty good and refreshed from not playing the back half of last season. I just don't think there's enough weapons there, especially minus Cooper Kupp and really just a lot of uncertainty in that run game. I have to pick the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm not even going to answer this question. I think you know where I'm going.
Yep. Rams. Got it.
That's the only way you're going to catch up to me.
Writing it in. You didn't say a team, so I said Rams for you.
Niners.
All right, there we go. God, the New York Football Giants at the Arizona Cardinals.
You alluded to before, teams that get embarrassed, I feel like would usually play better than next week. Give me the Giants. Way more talented, too.
If Giants lose this, they should walk off the field because the Arizona Cardinals are literally intentionally not trying to win football games. I know. So if they win,
the most blatant, tanking I've ever seen.
Jets at Cowboys.
I'm going to say the Cowboys, but I do think this is going to be really close. I'm going to say under. Whatever it is, I'm picking the under on that.
I already told you when I was talking about what I'm looking forward to that the Cowboys were going to win this football game, but I agree it's going to be close, and I'm really curious to see what they do against arguably the league's best defense. All right, a couple more games here. Washington at Denver.
I like Denver. Washington almost lost against the Cardinals at home.
Yeah, I like Denver too, which is just bizarre because they're an awful team. The Miami Dolphins at the New England Patriots.
I don't think New England has the offense. Even though I don't think Miami is going to do what they did to the Chargers to New England, I just don't think they have the offense, the Patriots. So I'm going Miami. This
is another under game. I do expect the Dolphins defense to catch up to the Dolphins offense. I just think they need a little bit more time to get acclimated to Vic Fangio. Obviously, it's a different scheme. But I think the world of him as a defense coordinator, obviously. So this will be a bit of a defensive battle more so than it's going to be a shootout. And then Monday night, we got a double header this week. Don't know if you knew this. Yeah. So the first game is the Saints at the Panthers. I'm going to take the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
You as well?
I concur.
All right. And then we got the Browns at the Steelers. I'll let you pick first on that.
All right. Geez, thanks, man. Browns at the Steelers. Give me the Browns.
Yeah, I'm Brownies too. They just looked pretty good.
Even though the defense looks good.
Yeah, the defense. I know they're still trying to figure out the Deshaun Watson thing, but what I saw of
what, his legal issues?
Of Pittsburgh, yeah. And what I saw of Pittsburgh didn't look good. They're going to be without Deontay Johnson, so that's one less weapon for Kenny Pickett. I'm going to have to go with the
offensive line. Listen, man, like you guys beat up on their offensive line. I'm not saying the Browns have a defensive line like you guys. They don't, but they do have two really talented pass rushers that I think can wreak havoc against Kenny Pickett.
Yeah,
and I don't know if you saw that clip of Myles Garrett when they Schwartz, who's the new defensive coordinator of the Browns, they made him like a middle linebacker, like hovering over the center of the Bengals. And do you see what he was doing? He's doing like an Allen Iverson crossover or whatever. And basically, it was like a game of basketball. He just crossed over the center and just like sacked fucking Burrow, bro. It was like it's like he knew it was insane.
Jim Schwartz is another one, man. What do we always say? This is the only sport in the world that coaching actually matters. You know what I mean? And it's all about getting in your bag and being creative. All right, so we have 2-game differential, meaning like 2 games where we have different teams. So there will be distance created in week 1 in our first week of the pick'ems, which
Lions, Seahawks. What's the other one?
Jags, Chiefs.
So oh man, I can't believe you're giving me this, man.
I'm taking the league every year.
Oh, I'm taking $50 from you and this. Wow, this is beautiful.
Bro, you're gonna have to, that 50 doesn't come into play till September of next year.
Yeah, I'm pinning that shit.
I'm gonna put 50 cents a week away.
In your ally account.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I'll just open a brokerage account for me, bud. I'll throw it right in there.
Hey, I can be your guy.
Yeah, everybody needs a guy. So, all right, so that wraps us up. This is our coverage of week 1. Obviously, if you're familiar with Lou and I, we do all the in-season recap. We're going to start doing this live. Late show this evening, but we certainly do encourage you to come in. We are no strangers to being thrown curveballs. You have questions, want something answered. We talk about every team in the NFL week over week. It's not just about our home team. So we encourage you to come. Again, it's We're Talking Football Podcast on YouTube. Lou, let everybody know where they can find us on Instagram and Twitter.
Find us on Instagram and Twitter at WTF Pod NFL and Weston Him with the YouTube channel.
We're Talking Football, baby. Come check it out. That's WE''RE Talking Football Podcast. No abbreviations here. But Lou, always fun getting back into the swing of the season. Like we said, there'll be a couple new topics introduced throughout the course of the season where we'll talk a little bit more about fantasy football as there's a bit more of a body of work. We'll throw out some of those hot topics that are going to change week to week. So if you have any ideas or input, let us know. That being said, that's going to wrap us up for the evening. Till this time next week, we'll catch you all later.